Said Nigerians expected a higher standard. That's what they said. And we do agree. And like Nigerians are entitled to expect a higher standard. But the point I'm making is that even the standard we got at the end of the day, they did not say it affected substantially the outcome of the elections. They also mentioned at the end of the day that in most of the polling stations across the country, elections went on peacefully. I want you to go and read that report. So they did not say that the violence recorded in some polling stations overshadowed the overall peaceful nature of the elections. That was the point they made so eloquently, that in major parts of the country the election was also peaceful. But then we must improve on those deficiencies that reports and the suggestions they have made. They are very welcome. These are suggestions and observations that we cannot run away from. We do appreciate them. We know there were pockets of violence across the country, and these pockets of violence affected both the ruling party and the main opposition. The deficiencies that were mentioned, the drawbacks that were mentioned, also affected both the ruling party and the main opposition. Do not also forget that it is this imperfect system that we are talking about, this imperfect system that the main opposition wishes to spin to appear as if it is the fault of the ruling party. It's that same imperfect system that produced their governors in states where we previously controlled. So that imperfect system gave them Bauchi, that imperfect system gave them Adamawa, that imperfect system gave them Imo, that imperfect system gave them Oyo, and in the presidential election we lost even some states in our stronghold in the West. We lost about 1 or 2 states in our own stronghold. It is that imperfect system that gave them those victories. So when they try to spin the story to appear as if all of these reports of these international organizations, observers, are a domination of the ruling party, is a lie. It's actually a domination of every major player in the political system. But the most important thing about the report of the NDI and the IRI, if you read it line for line, is that at the end of the day, they did not dispute the eventual outcome of the elections. They pointed out the deficiencies. For instance, they quoted the independent collation system of YAIGA, and they quoted it with approval, that it actually at the end of the day reflected the overall wishes of Nigerians. They also pointed out that the collation system at the end of the day, if despite all the hiccups, also agreed with YAIGA's own final outcome.
One of the major statements
now,
that they made, Mr. Festus.
at the end of the day, the EU did not make this kind of observation that the NDI and the international Republicans made, that most of the polling was still peaceful. I appreciate that point they made so much. And that's the point we have been trying to push, that if you mention the drawbacks we have in some polling stations across the country, at the end of the day, you must make a comparative analysis. Comparative analysis to the point that, well, haven't mentioned all of this violence that happened in some polling stations and all that. What was it compared to the other ones that went on peacefully too? They made that point so eloquently that at the end of the day, the peaceful polls across the country far overshadowed. There was far more than the pockets of violence that we noticed across the country.
Okay, as a senior...
The Supreme Court by law is not a court of trial. And in most cases, for election petitions and some other disputes, you need to go through trial first before you go to the Supreme Court. I may advocate a 2-step process, but it is dangerous to also take a complaint or a grievance to just one court. In most cases, the second hierarchy of courts allows the disputants to extract all the mistakes made by the lower court and then the higher court, either the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court, can make a final conclusion on those disputes. But when you go straight to one court at the Supreme Court, and even if there is a 10-man panel and there's a mistake made along the way in giving a judgment, nobody